Before Wojciech will be given the stage, I would like to mention that he's the CEO of the Living Factory in Dąbrowa Górnicza. He was involved in the project from the very beginning. So now we will have opportunity to know the origins and the implementation of the project, and you have a big opportunity to ask him all the questions, not only the polite one and the easy one, but also to ask about the fuck-ups, about the macro economy impact of the project, as well as the COVID times. So do not hesitate to ask any questions, because the process is run from 2017. As well as the beginning of the Living Factory projects from the ministry. But nowadays, it had to change a lot. So it's really the process involving people and involving all the aspects of economy, and also about the crisis and the war in the Ukraine. So
yes, it's true. So now I will try to explain you how is the Living Factory, and the beginning short information that the Dąbrowa Górnicza is connected by two words. The first word means Oakland, the second of mines. And it is beginning of our story. So our story is beginning between the 90s and the 20th century, when mining settlements were found around the coal mines, and from them the town grew. So it's a genesis of our city, and genesis of our project, of course. Because the Dąbrowa Górnicza city has industrial heritage. And on the left side of our presentation, you can see the factory where the Living Factory is, and the right side is the city center and the 20th century. So you can see very many factories exactly in the city center in Dąbrowa Górnicza. In the 1970s, the Huta Katowice Steel Works, which was the largest metallurgical corporation in the Central Europe, was formed, and this steel works changed our city. In this slide, you can see how Dąbrowa Górnicza was grown from, for example, the 90s, the 70s to the 2022. At the beginning of the 70s, in Dąbrowa Górnicza lived more or less 65,000 residents. Now we have more or less 119 residents. So it's the story about our city. Of course, the main aspect of this story is the Huta Katowice Steel Works, and now this steel works is, of course, little than about 50 years ago. And the map of our city at the beginning is Huta Katowice Steel Works, and we are on the left side of Dąbrowa Górnicza, and around us is the main part of our city. In approximately 10% of the city's area, downtown and Gołąb districts, live about 80% of Dąbrowa Górnicza residents. So it's a short exploitation of our city. So contemporary Dąbrowa Górnicza is more open than mining, because in 1995 Dąbrowa Górnicza became mining town without mines in June 1995. At the time, mining at the Paris mine was terminated. So we have the challenge of modern times, a new mode of public transport, new center, downtown economic zone. The Living Factory, it is the project, the main project in our city, is a breakthrough project in Dąbrowa Górnicza. The 4-hectare site of the Fabryka Obrabiarek Ponad, the full machine tool factory, has been completely closed of the residents since to the end of the 19th century. Now, I hope it is to become a vibrant heart of Dąbrowa Górnicza. And about the beginning of the process and the model revitalization, I'd like ask Magda, so start and explain our friends how we began the Living Factory project.
Okay, because as I've mentioned before, and maybe as you've noticed, we are multidisciplinary bodies experts, so we cope together, and not only on the small issues, but also on this model of revitalization of the central part of our city. So this project, we started with the project called Model Revitalization. It was co-financed by the governance money from the technical operational program. So we gained money from the Ministry of the European funds, and we had opportunity to spend 3 years on the consultation. So our encounter head department, they told us, okay, you spend money on talking, we're discussing with people, but it was really 3 years of very different and sometimes difficult processes, because we've made the 3 years of consultations. First of all, we wanted to make the diagnosis not only the social one, but also economical one. We divided the people into the 4 parts. The people who live, who are the neighbors of this part of the city, the people who are involved in the social actions, the people who wanted to spend their free time there, and also the people who run business on this area. In these 4 different aspects, we wanted to ask them questions about the past and the future. And what is very important, and I think that Wojciech didn't mention it at the very beginning, we are talking about the areas situated in the city center and next to the very important things like a railway station, also to the Palace of Culture. Also, this place is situated in the very near the Lake District you've already seen on the film. And what is also important, normal people who didn't work there in this factory, they haven't got opportunity to see what's behind the wall, because it was like the wall separating the city from this factory, and people were passing through, but they didn't have an opportunity to come into this place. So for people living in Dąbrowa Górnicza, it was completely unknown district. They only knew that this part of city is important because it's located in the city center. So we make the big diagnosis, and it was the sociological one and also the economical one. And we asked about 3,000 inhabitants, respondents, the young people. We asked them if they want to stay in Dąbrowa Górnicza, what was the main issue, why they should stay in Dąbrowa Górnicza. We also asked the workers about this, also the people involved in the business. So this was a diagnosis that give us the feedback that people really want to have the space which is equal, which gathers together, and also the space for them, but without any, let's say, a modern consuming type of the space. So they want to have the real place to gather, to talk, and also to meet with others. What we do to make this consultation, we didn't only want to talk with the people, but we also make more than 60 cultural events on this area to check it in process, how it should look like. You've got this photo downstairs that shows how this place looks like during the summertime. The people just sit there, then can have a beer or a drink there, eat something, listen to the music, and also cultural events show us that this is an open space. Sometimes the people are just passing by and they stop for a coffee or to meet with a friend. Sometimes they just go to the Living Factory to spend a work there. We've got 14 microgrants. What we call the microgrants, they're a small amount of money. It's between 5 to 10,000 zlotys, so let's say more or less 2,000 euro. You can spend on your own action. You have to prepare this action, also make it by yourself. And in these microgrants, you can be the group or informal group or the NGOs, and it differs from the field to field. You can organize, as Andrian before said, really the sport event, cultural event, but also the meeting for the elderly people, for the young one. So it depends on you what you want in this area. And what this microgrants show us, that this space is multifunctional. So you cannot be only focus on, for example, music. You cannot be only focused on entrepreneurship, but you have to involve the different actors in this sector. And also this is a very good space for the innovations. And Agnieszka later on will tell you about one of this project which was created on the field of Living Factory. What else we involve people in? It was research works. Normally we say that when we explore the city, the easiest way is to go for a walk. How often do you walk in your own town? You usually, Cristiano, or perhaps people from Italy, you mainly use cars. Am I wrong? Or are you walking?
Bassa Moggia is a beautiful place, and we are in the countryside, so
yeah,
a lot of people needs cars to move to town because it's very difficult and it's very spread, so it's difficult. But
yeah.
a lot of people use bicycle and they walk a lot.
Okay, so mainly nowadays, especially in Poland, because we love cars, so we use cars. But where are when you are using car, you omit some things in the city center, and you don't realize there are so. For example, borders for disabilities. So we take people for the research works. We divided them into groups. So the young people, the elderly one, with the people with disabilities, mother with young children, and also the different groups. But we also make the mixed research work. And it's important because on this way, you just feel the problems of the other people. For example, young people can, they really can imagine that elderly people are walking slower. But you can imagine it, but you don't take it into account when you make the project. But when you walk with them hand by hand, feet by feet, you just have to be equal with them. So you have to feel like them. And we also make one research work with the technical department of the university, when they can wear the special clothes for the fat people, for the elder one. They can feel like the people with disabilities, for example, without possibilities to walk normally. So we make the research work, and then we decided what is the priority of the center, the city center. And the most important was to be close. You've seen the film Dąbrowa Górnicza near. So that's why we want to make everyone near. So from this research work, we made the big priority to easily enter the not only the Living Factory, but also the city center on the level 0. So you don't have to go down or up. to go to the city center. We've got also mobile consultation points. It's very nice, very easy to do, and it's also not as much as time consuming and the other points of consultations, and it's of course cheap, which is important nowadays. You've got this mobile consultation point during the events, during, for example, the concert, during the runs, during the normal meetings with the people. You've got just the table with some post-its, and also you ask people to sign something down on the map, and you ask them very easily questions. For example, if they're waiting for a bus on the bus station, you can ask them why you are coming to the city, what do you need in the city center, why you use this form of public transport, for example, what should be easier to be involved with. So we've got mobile consultation points not only in the city center, but also of the different parts of Dąbrowa Górnicza, and we ask them how do they feel about the city center nowadays, and how the city center should look like in the future. We've got the backyard debates. I've explained to you on the last meeting. So I will just remind you that the backyard debates are just like a picnic when you involve all the groups of interest. For example, you are organizing the contest for the youngest children to draw how the city should look like. You also trying to involve the parents and so on. Very important was also the expert workshops. So we ask architects, also the people who are urbanists or involved in the urban planning, and also about the economy aspect of the development of the cities. We ask them to make the plan how the company should be developed. And that we got the process, how to involve not only the people, but also what the city and the private sector and public sector and the third sector should do to establish a company. What kind of company should it be? So nowadays, this is not a profit company, but it's 100 ruled by the city. And it was from this expert workshop. We've got also the young package and youth package and pilot senior package. What does it mean? That we make the special lessons, but not only at schools, but also in the free time, and also for the elderly people who are involved never involved in the process before, to show them what the revitalization is, how they can be involved in the process. We wanted to speak with them in their language, not in the expert language, to explain that this is the process. The most important things in this model revitalization is we're talking with people about, okay, we're in the process. We have got some important issues to do. We have milestones in this process, and we will show you how it looks like. But remember, it's a process. Everything could change, and you are involved in this process. You are in very important actor in this process. But in the end, it could be completely different than we thought in the very beginning. We also involved in this process of the model revitalization urbanists and architects, because we knew that the people will talk not about the needs, but they will tell us, okay, I've been, for example, to Germany, and I saw the UNERV, for example, and I want to have the same UNERV in Dąbrowa Górnicza, but in fact they didn't want the UNERV, but what they wanted to have the space on the street which belongs to them, with covered from the snow, the sun and snow, yeah, the sun in the summertime and snow in the winter time. But okay, they couldn't explain it, but they wanted to have the UNERV because they loved it in the different parts. So as you can see here, after these 3 years of consultations, we knew what they wanted in the city center. So they showed us, okay, we want the Museum of Industry, Greenery and Water, we want leisure sports, some coffees, restaurants, the places to meet, art galleries, local business, education, craft, and the animation center. You can see it on the left. But in fact, what they wanted a new space, which was inclusive and open, a meeting spot with friends and strangers. They wanted to have a mix of shared intimate spaces, also be open to the public and for all, not just for customers. But we knew it because of this 3 years of consultation, also by involving experts in this process, because people were telling us, okay, we wanted to have the leisure sports. And we told them, okay, but leisure sports you can do on besides the Pogoria lakes or in the Halera Park, where we've got the big sports center and you can go there. Okay, but we also wanted to have it in the area of the Living Factory. So we imagined that they wanted open to the public place when we can meet together and have just the spare time together. So
Okay.
now I'm giving the voice back to Wojtek.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Finally, we have based the project on 4 pillars. The Living Factory. The first pillar is factory full of history as a reference. Zagłębie, that's our region, and industrial identity on the place. The second pillar is factory for climate, is very important for this project. I'm talking about responsible use of the natural resources and energy self-sufficiency. The factory of culture of art is the third pillar, a unique cultural space in the industrial spaces of the factory, and factory 3 of technological solutions for innovative businesses, very important in the topic of our meeting. I will describe about 2 pillars of this topic. The first of factory of history, about references to the our region and the identity of the place. On the left side, we can see the visualization of the streets in the middle of the Living Factory, full of references to our region. For example, house will be named after the district of Dąbrowa Górnicza, like Ząbkowice, Łosień, Tworzeń, and streets, squares, and cards will be named after former owners of tool machine factory. For example, Emil Szkoda, the founder of a very famous Czech brand, who was the beginner of the Living Factory, the tool machine factory, of course, and the others. Information about the district of Dąbrowa Górnicza, historical city maps, open air display cases, etc., etc. You can see this list of the right side of the slide. And in the 2019, we started to change the area of the Living Factory, and first of buildings was demolition. And on the right side, you can see model of a side head boarding table and a glass mural with object were made in the factory, because very many things from the old factory we served, and they will be present in the new city center in Dąbrowa Górnicza.
Maybe I could add, Wojtek, maybe I could add some things, because
Yes.
according to our experiences from Hernani, we also wanted to make the revitalization not only of the buildings but also of the history. So why it's important to have this inclusion of historical aspects, because people are part of this history. They were the workers in this factory, so they feel like at home over there. And also this special things you can see on the photos, they can be found in the different part of the living factory even nowadays, and they associate this place with them. So Iran is like in Armani we've been, so we wanted also to make them to remember about the past, not only thinking about the future, because from past to the future it's about the establishing the local community. So that's why this issue, this priority is so important. Even nowadays, we are not talking only about the things, but also the revitalization of the history. And maybe it's also good to mention that the Living Factory company is dealing with the problem of the history, and we are trying to force them with the special meetings of the past workers. So I guess it's twice a year we can meet in the workshop of the Living Factory, and then could talk together, and they could also discover the different parts of the history. They exchange knowledge, and they also sometimes bring some new facts to the history, and also they can create their own space to share the knowledge about the Defcon Panel factory.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you. And the second pillar is factory for climate, and of course is a very important part of our project. When we are talking about factory for climate, we're talking about green energy self-sufficiency, responsible use of natural resources, green passage, energy efficiency, rational and economical water management, plants as an integral part of the development, bird, insect, and small mammal-friendly plants, flower meadows, fruit trees and bushes, green arranged roofs, green market. The symbol of the new city center in Dąbrowa Górnicza is a main square covered by grass. We'll see this visualization in next slides. Now it's the same story and description how the Living Factory was changed last year. Now in places where halls will stay. We have Playfield Beach, Sandpit, Urban Law, Flower Meadow. So we try to change the living factor with eco-friendly and green spaces in the city center in Dąbrowa Górnicza. And now I will see some photos from last year, and in my opinion is the best description about the Living Factory. At the first photo we can see yoga on the grass. It's our space nowadays for young people, for temporary restaurants, events, and lights. As you can see, is a place where we sometimes when we sometimes meet with arts. For example, this sculpture called Hope. So we can hope that for next years our project will be ready. And on the left side you can see restaurant side of the Living Factory. On the right side is the cinema on the earth. and the exhibitions about the beginning of the solidarity in Poland, because Dąbrowa Górnicza is one of the 4 places where solidarity was born in 1981. Of course, we have very many people, especially in weekends. So you can see in this picture some sports. We have even our own bees in the living factory, and people, young people connected with old people, because our offer is for every residence in Dąbrowa Górnicza. Concerts, meetings, the same concerts, special events for the youngest citizens in our city, business meetings in the first revitalization object in the living factory, and meetings with sport, with nature, with art. Of course, I was talking about all the people, our seniors, cyclists, and this is a picture with the workers in the tool machine factory, which who are very important for us, because we meet each other very often, and it's photos with one of meetings with them. And this is visualization of the whole project of the living factory. See the main square covered by grass, as I said, and very many different buildings, which are divided of office and service buildings, residential buildings. This is part of the living factory, and the residential of office buildings, and of course very many buildings with remains of the living factory, our history, not only this factory, but history of the region. And this is visualization of a main square and the different buildings, because the living factory project connected old halls and the new buildings, like for example this tower. And the second part is the typical public space in the living factory. Of course, nowadays, because this visualization is from the 2019. Nowadays, we still change this project, and I'm sure that in the future the green zones will be more important, and will be covered whole places in the living factory. Is one of the visualization as visualization with food hall or food court, which will be one of the first building in the living factory. Of course, I hope that for 2 years we'll start the build this place in our city, in our city center. Is the one of the first hall which will be built, I hope, in the living factory. On the right side you can see the main square in Dąbrowa Górnicza, in the city center of Dąbrowa Górnicza. And this is very short presentation, very short description about the living factory. Of course, we can ask your question if you have now. Thank you. your attention, and we of course are ready for next part of our meeting.
Maybe it's also good to add some important from our point of view information connected with the EU strategies. If you don't mind, I will also tell you about the new European Bauhaus, because now it's important.
Of course.
It's also very important from our point of view. As you know, the new European Bauhaus is the initiative connected by the European Green Deal to our daily lives and living spaces. That's why we wanted to present you the Living Factory project. It calls on the all European imagination to build together a sustainable and inclusive future in which is beautiful not only for your eyes, so what you can see, but also for your mind and soul. The new European Bauhaus is a creative and transdisciplinary movement in the making, and that's why I wanted you to show the Living Factory, because from the very beginning we even didn't know about the new European Bauhaus, but we were trying to build a bridge between the world of science, technology, and art and culture, because Wojtek mentioned about two aspects, the historical one and the one connected with climate, but we've also got the one connected with world of science and technology and the art of culture. Also, the new European Bauhaus is about the green and digital changes to transform our lives for the better. And it's also the initiative to address complex social problems together with the co-creation. And this co-creation, Agnieszka will be talking later on. So for us, it's important that the Living Factory is about sustainability. It's one of the values. From climate goals with zero pollution and biodiversity. And it's also about aesthetics, equality of style and beyond functionality, and also about inclusion, valuing differences to services, accessibility, and affordability. That's why we take part in this new European Bauhaus as a partners, also as a good practice, because from the very beginning in our initiatives, we really pay attention to all these three aspects I've mentioned before, which are crucial for new European Bauhaus.
Okay, great. Very, very interesting. Questions? I have many, but you go first.
So we are free to ask.
So no questions. So
Okay.
first question from my side. So your presentation was about what it went well so far, but I know that a project like this can be a nightmare for many different reasons. And we stated many times along this project that what is very important for people that have the same position as you, so people planning, it's very nice to know what went well, but it's even more important to know what went not so well, what was difficult, where you had very, very radical, difficult problems, because it really helps you to plan for the future, learning from other experience. This is the first question. If you can just go a little bit into what was difficult. The second question is, so far, I would like to know more about the sustainability, the economical sustainability of the thing. So how it stays on today, and what are you planning for the future? Because very often this kind of projects can start from, I don't know, like EU financing or other sources, private financing, but then there is a problem in the future, no, to keep it alive, to stay on. So you have to find a balance and to have resources to carry on. So if you could give us a little bit more on those two elements.
Okay. answer of your first question is quite easy. Our main problem is that we still don't start to build this new city center, because at the beginning of the Living Factory company, we met the pandemic, so it changed everything, and we still wait for European Union funds. For example, last month we get first application of European Union funds, and in Poland it's not easy as different countries in European Union, but of course we hope that the future of our project connected is connect with European Union funds. So the first part of these funds will be probably next year, and at the beginning we get application for the public spaces and two buildings from our residence. The first of two buildings is this one on the left side. When we want to have places from meetings of our space, of our residence, and the second one is the behind of this building, and it's of course only the beginning of this main project. So the time is my problem, because we started with the Living Factory at 2017, and we have 2023, and as you can see, our project is still at the temporary point. So people know that in this place will be the new city center in Dąbrowa Górnicza, but of course without funds it's not easy. So is the challenge. At the beginning, we tried to get European Union funds and get cooperation with investors. We think about a public-private partnership for the residence parts of the Living Factory. And we even think about social cooperation in this place, and it's a very huge challenge for me, because in Poland it's not popular, I think, to create new spaces and new businesses, but it's very important for our residents. And at the beginning of consultation, people wanted to be the owners, of course, this place. In Poland, we have places like the Living Factory. Of course, in the big cities like Warsaw, for example, Łódź or Gdańsk, but in a city like Dąbrowa Górnicza, which has more or less 100,000 residents. It's absolutely unique project. The first one. The second one is factories exactly in the city center. So it's a chance for creation at the new part. And I didn't explain it, but we are part of the metropolis, the first metropolis in Poland, GZL metropolis, and our metropolis didn't have the place like this. So it's the chance for the Living Factory, because the distance by train from the Dąbrowa Górnicza to metropolis, Katowice city, is only more or less 20 minutes. So it's no distance, and I hope that Dąbrowa Górnicza in future, with our project and with our economy, will be the modern part of the GZM metropolis. So it's a probably a short answer about your second question, and it's now we are wait for European Union funds, and I hope that this year we will get answer that we will create the living factory next year and the next 2 years, and in this first step is important to start next steps with economy, with creation of business models, etc., etc.
Okay,
But if I also could add something from the process, because Wojtek is responsible for the managing the process and also about the financing part and so on, but also the process was involving people. And now people are asking questions, not only what happened and why it didn't happen in this year with plan, because we all lived in the same situation. So for us, it's for sure that they should know that the COVID times, the war at the Ukraine, but they don't associate one thing with another. They're just asking, okay, you've been promised to, for example, to build the building until 2023. Now it's the year, and why it didn't happen. So you really have to explain people from the very beginning how the process was constructed, and that's why when I was mentioning about the consultations, it's really important to let people know that it's the process and everything can change, and also to be prepared for the changes, because people sometimes they don't want to change their thinking, not only the thinking but also they don't want to change. For example, if they see in the visualization this big block of flats or something like this, they wanted to have it in this space, and they don't associate. Okay, the time has changed because, for example, the people are not working longer in the offices. They work from home from time to time. You can have the online meetings as we have today, so you don't need the big conference center. The time has changed, and also the world has changed from these COVID times and the war time. So now you have to come back to these people, give them message, what failed, what we didn't do, what happened, and what is the new plan, and also try to involve the main actors in this process nowadays. For example, this meeting with the people who own these mobile bars there, it's important to have, but also to involve the institutions and also the NGOs in this process to give the new face of this working the living factory, and also still making these cultural events. Because what you didn't mention, but every weekend during the summertime, they will also make this concerts, the yoga classes, workshops from the young people, just to remind people this place is still living and is going to change, but maybe not as fast as we thought at the very beginning of the process. And we also had to change our views and our possibilities of financing this place, because also the level of income to the city would get down. We were one of the most developed cities in our region and also very rich. But nowadays, due to the economic situation in Poland, the incomes that get down, so we don't have as much money as we want to invest in the living factory. So we have to change also the way how to co-finance this place from the public budget.
Okay, thanks a lot. This is very interesting. I'm quite surprised that you don't have private sector wanting to put their hands on a space in the center of the town like that, and you don't have fighting on that. We saw that in many places in Europe when you have a old industrial area in a very good position in the town, that you normally have a lot of private company wanting to fight to have that space.
But you know, Cristiano, that's why we wanted the space to be owned by the city and inhabitants. We didn't want to sell the space. And in this way, for the private sector, it's not normal because we didn't mention it during our presentation, neither Wojtek, neither I, but we've got the big architecture contest, and so we decided with inhabitants, but also with the architects, how this should look like to be standardized. And according to the new European Bauhaus, we want to have the standards also. So maybe that's why the private sector, they didn't want to come, because we don't want to sell the space. We want to be the owner of the space, and it should be governed by the living factory company, not from the private sector from outside the city. That's why, as Wojtek mentioned before, in Warsaw or in Gdańsk, in different cities, when you get the whole space to the public, to the private sectors, they just buy the space and they make, for example, the commerce center over there. It's normal, and it also happens in Italy, for example, Darsena. Yeah, so it's normal. But when we want to be the owner of the space, when you want to be the space to be open to the public, not only to the customers, it's far more hard to find the investor.
Yes, and that's probably the main difference between the Living Factory and the famous project like this in Poland. And sometimes I feel like a god of the Living Factory project, because for us still it's very important to be open for our residents. And as I told you, the beginning with first step with European Union funds is in our opinion the best solution for the Living Factory. Of course, we have ideas how to add the Living Factory project for European Union funds, but now we are waiting for European Union funds.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thank you. Very, very interesting.